Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate, another episode of my summer deep dives. I'm covering all 72 clubs over the course of a month between mid-June and mid-July. There's already a few been already uploaded. You can find them on my Twitter account at Gab Sutton, which you can see on the screen there. And they're also on YouTube and in podcast form on Spotify. Delighted to be joined by Nathan from the Rod Brian Red podcast of Wrexham AFC. How are you, Nathan?
Very good. Yeah, very excited. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure to have you making your EFL debate debut on the show. So yeah, really excited to have you on. Thanks for your time, mate. I suppose that the biggest question around Wrexham in terms of mainstream circles at the moment, Nathan, is the Wrexham story a fairy tale? And I mean a little bit in two minds on this because I see stories in English football like what Accrington Stanley have achieved and like what Wycombe Wanderers have achieved in the last 5-10 years on tiny budgets to push to much greater heights. And I see that, to me, I see those as fairy tales. And yet at the same time, I see a real romance about the story with Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney in terms of the fact that they've embraced a club that had 30, 40 years of financial issues and decline, and just taken them to their hearts and given their fans something to be excited about. So, yeah, where do you sort of stand on that spectrum?
I think, yeah. Ultimately, a fairy tale is something that is achieved against all odds, and usually those are financial odds in football, right? So all of those that you mentioned, Yeovil getting to the Championship, or Wycombe,
Yeah,
or Accrington, or really
Burton.
Luton Town now getting to the Premier League. Burton, Luton getting to the Premier League.
Mm,
But I think it's undeniable. It depends also how you're looking at it. If you're an American fan or someone outside of the UK that is looking at this idea that you could take a team from Division 5 all the way to the Premier League at whatever cost that is, that's still an unbelievable achievement. And I think there's immense romance to getting Wrexham back in the Football League. Like you say, all the financial trouble, the hardship, fans saved the football club, and that was a miracle in and of itself. And now we've got these two guys that had no connection to the area, willing to invest in the people, and have delivered on what they promised. And they've used significant funds to do so, but as we've seen, it's not a guarantee for success. I mean, in League Two now, Salford still there.
mm,
We thought they would go on and do X, Y, Z, and so look, we don't. Wrexham fans don't use the word fairy tale. There's no Wrexham fan that I know
mm.
that is using that word. Seems to be the
Yeah,
buzzword for everybody else, or the stick to
yeah,
beat Wrexham with.
yeah.
But I think the romance, the romantic side of it is, look, Wrexham have been on in hard times for a long time. It's a great area, great town, great city now. Um, and they deserve it. And I know that's also something that people absolutely hate. Who deserves what? Everybody deserves what they get. But
Sure.
I think it's hard to begrudge. I think if you unless you're a direct rival, unless you're a Chester Shrewsbury Town fan or something like that, it's hard to begrudge
Mm.
Wrexham. What's happening right now?
Absolutely, yeah, I can remember, and I said this when I went on your podcast. Um, my memory of Wrexham is when you came. My team is Birmingham City, and you came to our place in 06-07. We beat you 4-1 in extra time, but you put up a good fight that night. I think Chris Llewellyn scored. Might have been the opener, and I think there was sort of an acknowledgement from Blues fans at that time of the real difficulties Wrexham have had, and I think we'd need a separate podcast to go into all the financial issues of previous eras that Wrexham have got into, and whether you'd want to is probably another question. But I'm delighted for you from my point of view that you've got a team and a club to really be proud of. I suppose it's interesting as well that that word fairy tale is almost kind of used against you without you using it yourselves a little bit. And I think that's a funny thing because we saw it sort of in a smaller scale last summer with Stockport County, where I think a lot of people from a neutral perspective expected Stockport County to really be right up there, and maybe from the point of the view of the fan base, the expectation was a little bit more modest, where it's like we've just come into the Football League, we're hoping we can challenge, but we don't absolutely have to. So, yeah, where do Wrexham fans sit right now in terms of expectation?
I think the expectation is a top 7 finish, which again you accused of arrogance just coming into the league, but the idea was that Wrexham were building a squad capable of League One. That was always the message and the mantra, that we'll get players in, Mullin, Tozer, Hayden, all players that we believe, Tom O'Connor, all players that we believe can play in League One, Elliot Lee. And so the idea was, yeah, you'd go straight through or you'd give it a good go. You'd get a top 7 finish. Will there be plenty of competition? Yeah, definitely. Gillingham, MK Dons. I really like Graham Alexander. I think that's a smart pickup for them. Wrexham are not going to walk the league, and no one is thinking that as a Wrexham fan. But I think anyone who thinks we will struggle to get into the top 7, I think is being probably, overly pessimistic, really, with the players we've got and the manager we've got. So most would say top 7. Quite a few saying top 3 that they think is a realistic target.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. How close do you think this current squad is to achieving that objective?
I'd say quite close. I'd say 80% there. Probably they're probably going to make maybe. I mean, when I was speaking to people, there was talk of 5 additions, one of which is Ben Foster now. So you could say another 4 more. I'd say probably a striker, maybe another left wing back, maybe a centre back and a central midfielder. So, and the difficulty is that they want to upgrade the quality that they've already got. A lot of the
Mm.
players there want to play every week, so it's a case of maybe there'll be some tinkering. But it's strange because I think Wrexham are very, very patient. With the squad they've got, you're probably looking at, midfield next season of Tom O'Connor, Andy Cannon, Elliot Lee. And shouldn't look out of place at all in League Two. That should be one of the best midfields in there. Your front 3 of Paul, or front 2 even of Paul Mullin, Ollie Palmer, or Paul Mullin, Sam Dolby. There was interest in Alfie May. Probably not going to get Alfie May, but we'll see if there's another striker comes in. Ben Foster in goal will be among the most talented. It's just a question of how he will get on over 46 games instead of 8 games.
Well, and will he be
Um,
first choice? Is there another marquee goalkeeper going to come in?
he'll be the first choice. He'll be the first choice for that. I mean, I'm not expecting Ben Foster to turn out in the Papa John's trophy, but I think in EFL League Two, he'll be there every week because I just don't think he'd have signed on with all his media commitments. I just don't think he'd have put pen to paper on a deal that doesn't see him play every week. Just with so much else he's got going on, he's there to play, and it's a
You did
shame for Rob
express some
Lainton.
doubts, so if I can just jump in on that,
Yeah.
Nathan. When I went on your podcast about a month ago now, you said that
Mm.
there's a good chance Ben Foster might stay on for League Two, but would also be looking at bringing in a marquee goalkeeper. And I think we went through some
Yeah.
names at that point. So what's changed in the last month or so that's made you
Yeah.
think Ben Foster?
I mean, just from hearing him talk about it and hearing him talk about the pitch the club were making him, the WhatsApp groups that were set up to convince him, really pushing for him to be it. Yeah, I mean, we're on my podcast talking about Harry Lewis and all these other Vigouroux and all these other goalkeepers. There is a portion of the fan base that think getting in a keeper in their prime or a younger keeper would have made more sense. I mean, now we've got Foster who's 40, Mark Howard who's in his late 30s, Rob Lainton I think is 34. So you've got no one there really for the future. And
Mm.
I said Matt have mentioned it previously, but it's just kick the can down the road for a year. They'll be looking if they can get up into League One, then you go and you make a splash with a goalkeeper. But I think for now, they think Foster's more than capable of getting them out of League Two, which I'm sure he is. And they've got two deputies there. Mark Howard was Carlisle's Player of the Year before he joined us when he was playing in League Two, and Rob Lainton, has been at Port Vale and has got plenty of pedigree, just injury problems that have stopped him climbing the ladder. So, my personal feeling was I wanted to see a younger, high-profile goalkeeper, just in terms of growing with the team, but not to
Mm.
be. I'm not. I'm not on the same page as Les Reed.
What sort of role has Les Reed had on Wrexham in terms of the operational side of things? Because obviously Rob and Ryan bring the profile, they bring the financial support, but you need someone who's got a good football head on them. And Les Reed has got however many 40, 50 years in the game. Surely that's a massive feather in your cap.
Oh yeah, totally. It's yeah, he's been brilliant, Gab. In fairness, in terms of um, in terms of just the recruitment and he's not really been in the limelight. Kept very out of the way, very quiet, and just goes about his business, which I think is important because Rob and Ryan are idyllic. The best potential front men you've got. You've got Humphrey Carr, who's very close to them. And is a very good spokesman, very well spoken, and is great as a front man. Leslie can just go about his business with Sean Harvey, with people like that in the background. Peter Moore advising a little bit from the States, but Les Reed has just been working diligently scouting players, if nothing else. I mean, we know his
Mm.
background is in terms of talent identification. I mean, you're going to struggle to get
Sure.
people better in the country to, we know his work from Southampton in the academy many moons ago, and
Yeah.
even in the first team. But what he can do well with Sean Harvey negotiating the deals is not many people are aware of the deals until just before they're happening. Previously under the previous regime, when the fans owned it, everyone was telling everyone who was coming in and who was going, and it was the worst kept secret. Now, players that maybe we aren't super familiar with, some of them we are, some of them we're not, that they're picking up and really trusting, and even more so in the younger players as well. So, yeah, the impact of Les Reed, I think, is one of them which is quite difficult to gauge if you're external, but actually internally, he's very well thought of and very important to the jigsaw that is this Hollywood Wrexham.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of you mentioned Salford in a previous answer, and I wanted to bring them up because one probably the trap that they fell into when they came into the Football League and had ambitions of going to the top seven, I felt was they went because they could afford the established, experienced options in every position. They kind of always went for them, and sometimes you actually need a little bit of hunger, a little bit of exuberance, a little bit of fresh energy coming into the team in different areas. So how do Wrexham sort of strike that balance and make sure that they bring in players who have got that got those qualities?
Yeah, I think the main thing is Wrexham to not become some sort of retirement home. I'm not suggesting that is the case with Ben Foster, but
Mm,
you've seen Hal Robson-Kanu came out and said that he would like to play and he would play for free if he could. Neil Taylor, who used to be with us, has sort of warned. I mean, Morton Gams Pedersen came out and said he wouldn't mind Wrexham, and all these players that may be seeing it as a chance to build their profile. That's not what Wrexham want, and that's
mm,
not what Phil Parkinson wants. And you're picking up players like Ryan Barnett at Solihull. No real EFL experience. Was at Shrewsbury for a little bit, but no real EFL experience. Is a real live wire, real bright spot, willing to take a man on, not scared. A younger player,
mm,
Jacob Mendy on the other side. We've just seen him get a call up internationally. Those are the kind of players that Wrexham are looking to bring through it and bed in with people like Ben Tozer, who's got a wealth of experience, Ollie
mm,
Palmer, Paul Mullin. Experience is important in the lower leagues as well. It's knowing the dark arts. And I remember when Ollie Palmer left Wimbledon that he said one of the big frustrations for him was the dressing room was too young, really, to
mm,
know when to look for a foul and know when to run the clock down a little bit and little things that will win you
mm.
football matches and frustrate other fan bases. But
Yeah.
I think we're doing okay. We've got a group there that I think we can grow with, and there's a group there that are probably there for the next year, 2 years to get us to a platform. And their role is massive. Getting us out the National League took us 15 tries. So, let's not underestimate the importance of Ben Tozer and Luke Young and people like that and James Jones that maybe, yeah, they might not be um going on the journey the whole way, but they're playing very big steps along the way. So key for Wrexham now will be finding people that can grow with the team, your likes of Tom O'Connor. And I think it's no
Mm,
coincidence that, we're starting to see rumours of championship interest in him.
yeah.
Because that's the case. And unlike before, Wrexham don't have to cash in on their assets. Cash is not something that Wrexham have got in short supply now. So it's great, Gab. It's great having money and being able to get players and not be worrying about an unscrupulous owner. It's great.
I can see that. Talk to me about Paul Mullin then and the season he had last year. And I'd have to go along with Ryan Reynolds' claim that he's the best player in the year in Europe for Wales right now.
Yeah, he's amazing, isn't he? He's just so good at all aspects of his game. I mean, when he first joined us, the problem was service was in short supply, so he would drop deeper and deeper and deeper to get the ball. He'd drift out wide. I mean, he's your best finisher. You need him in and around the box. You need him in and around that 18-yard line, and he was drifting out, and he couldn't cross and head it himself. He couldn't cross to himself, unfortunately. So key part of the focus was get him a big man that he can play off. Ollie Palmer transformed our season. Now he's working well. He's developed his game. He drops back a little bit, but his finishing is just superb. Left foot, right foot header, penalties. I mean, there are very few flaws in his finishing game. Um, his temperament. I mean, he had could have had 2 red cards last season, only ended up with 1. But his temperament, I think, is been kept in check. The Wrexham won the Fair Play Award for a reason. Phil Parkinson's very adamant that we don't want to get cheap yellows and cheap reds. And yeah, Mullin is just a class apart, really. I think he's the all-round striker. Langstaff, as we'll see, come up, and it'll be interesting to see if he can keep up the scoring with Notts County. A great finisher. Just think Mullin has so much to his game: link up, hold
Mm.
up, finishing, pacing behind, strength. He just everything about it, left foot, right foot. Like I say, is we're lucky to have him. Very fortunate to have him.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully he can have another big season in League Two, like he did with Cambridge when he helped them to win promotion in 2021. Do you expect Ollie Palmer or Sam Dalby to be Paul Mullin's strike partner next season, first choice? Or do you think they're just going to be another marquee addition?
It's hard to say at this point because there is no marquee edition coming, and I don't know if there is one. I would think they do make a striker signing, but you've got to look at it and go, you've got Ollie Palmer, who will feel like he deserves to play. Sam Dolby is a young player, but came into his own at the back end of last season. Billy Waters signed with the view of Wrexham being back in the EFL and will want to play. So it's tricky. If you go and get
He can play
another,
in the
let's
10
just
way,
say,
Billy Waters. Sorry, he can
yeah,
play in the
this is
10
true.
role though, Billy Waters.
This is true, but we don't really play with a 10. So it makes you wonder. And if we do, it's Elliot Lee playing there as a 10. So it's I can't imagine Elliot Lee dropping out for Billy Waters. It's interesting. Obviously, depth is important, but all of those players will feel deserving of a spot to play. So if you go and get an Alfie May, what does that do then to the others? I would imagine that we see a bulk of Ollie Palmer as the strike partner, physical alongside him. I'm a big fan of Sam Dolby. I think he's developing immensely. And his link with Mullin is great, but I do think they'll lean towards Palmer as it stands right now.
Mm. Yeah, I think Palmer's the fact that he's got experience playing and being a really important player in League One, let alone League Two, I think could certainly swing things in his favour. But it also, I suppose, comes down to another theme, Nathan, which is the style of football. And I think you corrected me a little bit when I maybe assumed that a Phil Parkinson side would be super direct. And maybe this time at Wrexham, now he's got a little bit more quality. He's shown a willingness to sort of alter the style a little bit last season. So, what sort of style can we expect from Wrexham in League Two next year?
I mean, it's they will still at times go long to Palmer and to Mullin, and you've got pacing behind. If teams will play a high line, which often away from home they'll push up a bit higher. Wrexham's pacing behind with Barnett, Mendy, Mullin is just frighteningly good. But like I said, if the midfield is Tom O'Connor, Andy Cannon, and Elliot Lee, there's some great ball players there, some really technically savvy footballers, and what we saw over maybe the last 12 months is a switch in the style, really, is utilize the wing backs, try and get them on the ball, try and get them facing their man, and try and play through the midfield. Get the ball to Elliot Lee, get the ball to Andy Cannon. They're technically often better than their opponent, their marker, and you can just
Mm.
knock it around them. Little triangles, and I think for the first season that we saw Wrexham with Ollie Palmer and Paul Mullin, it was very direct, long diagonals from Tozer, from Hayden. Um, and so I think with the arrival of Cannon, with the arrival of Lee, the 2 wing backs we trust now on the ball in attacking positions, that's made a big difference to the 3-5-2. So are we going to pass everyone off the park throughout the League Two season in the cold nights of November and December? Probably not. But will we solely play direct football? I don't think we will.
That certainly makes sense. Do you think you'll want to be adding a little bit of physicality into midfield?
Good question. Yes, I would say. I'd say there's probably you probably need a bit of a bruiser. We've always said that for a long time now, and we've just put up a record points tally in a league which is known for bruisers galore, like WWE sometimes the National League. But we managed to navigate that, and I think if you are you're just better. You it will shine through eventually. I wouldn't mind one player who's kind of got a bit of that Rottweiler energy that's going to put in a couple of crunching challenges. Someone who's going to, at the end of the season, be a tackle leader in the
Mm.
league. Will they get that? I'm not sure. Luke Young has got that tenacity that I think he's still got that and can be that. But towards the back end of last season, first team captain dropped out for the last 11 games. Some talk about, was saving him. He played a lot of matches, Parkinson, but he clearly had just fallen out of favour, which is very unfortunate. But I still think there's a role for him there in terms of that breaking up the play and ferrying it to your Lees and Cannons.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if Luke Young struggled with the National League for the last 11 games, then if you're trying to get to top three standards in League Two,
Yeah.
that's one to recruit for. Because if I look at Phil Parkinson's best teams at their absolute peak, you would say Bradford City, they had Gary Jones in midfield, who was a real fighter in there. Then you go to his Bolton side, had Jay Spearing in there, who was really tenacious. Yeah, I would maybe suggest that you could possibly do with one other. I know Wrexham, when you're playing with a back three, I suppose it's maybe not quite as important as it might be when you've got a back four, but still, I think that option might help. Talk to me about the role Ben Tozer's had in Wrexham's work over the last 2 years.
Yeah, he's been absolutely, essential. Played every game last season. He started every match. Mr. Durable, leads by example, very vocal on the pitch. Is the quintessential captain, really, leader, someone who's been there, done it, knows what it takes to get promoted, very demanding of people around him. We've seen him give a few hair dries out on the pitch. And at these non-league grounds, you're never too far away. So I couldn't possibly repeat half of the comments on here. But you get very much the gist of what he's telling people to get back in position, I'll say, and very demanding. And for Phil Parkinson, must be an absolute dream to work with. He's not the quickest in the world, but he doesn't need to be. Surrounded by quicker
He's in the
centre
middle of a back
halves.
three.
Yeah, in the middle of a back three, quicker centre halves either side of him. The long throw has been a brilliant weapon, but I don't think it's been everything for Wrexham. Don't think it's been the long throw or bust. Clearly got a lot of goals from elsewhere, a lot of goals from open play. But undoubtedly, it's effective in just getting the ball in there, causing a bit of panic. Ball breaks the edge of the box, cross back in, and suddenly it's a goal. So maybe not the first phase, but the second or third.
Yeah.
And he's just very composed, even on the ball. You know what I mean? He's not scared to put his foot on it, play it out. And I think that was the first thing is like, what is he going to be like? Is he just going to be one of them get it and clear it type defenders? No nonsense. You always hear that, don't you, about defenders? They're
No,
no
no. Well,
nonsense.
the interesting thing is, he was a midfielder initially, and then it was only, I think it was 2018, Michael Duff switched from, he wanted to play 4-4-2 at Cheltenham because that's what he'd done at Burnley, and then for an EFL Trophy game against Arsenal, he switched to a 3-5-2, and I think he put Tozer in the middle of the back three, and from that moment on, Ben Tozer has been just one of the best middle centre backs in the lower leagues because he helped Cheltenham win the title from that role. They got into the playoffs the year before, and then obviously helped your lot win the National League title. So yeah, I think having him in there is going to be a massive asset.
Yeah, I mean, massively. I mean, he is one of them where you feel like his game could take us up another one. I mean, his aim, from knowing people around him, he's very confident that we can go and do it again with the group we've got, with the leadership. He's a key figure in the dressing room, supposedly the dressing room DJ, although I'm not sure about some of his music choices, but he's very
But
well liked. And,
what are his music choices?
I'm not sure. I think he quite likes his rap and other things. They've all got different choices. They're all a mix of genres in the dressing room. But he's very well thought of, very popular. He runs the fine system in the club as most captains do. I think he's quite strict with his fans as well.
That's quite good.
In
That's quite an interesting one from a manager's point of view. It's like you're kind of absolving yourself a little bit of responsibility. Oh well, don't ask me about it. That's Ben's job. He's giving you the
right,
fine.
right. Right. Yeah, they get fined for all sorts, phones in the dressing room, and all different clubs have their own different rules. But I mean, for me, he just strikes me as a future manager. The way he conducts himself, so professional. Um, just that air of a coach, on the pitch, which must be a dream for Parkinson because, as you know, it's as much as we see managers barking on the touchline, trying to get a message across to your left wing back when they're on the other side is not the easiest job in the world, depending on the, especially I don't know, a Valley Parade or Stadium MK or somewhere like that, where it's big stadium and a lot of people. And
Sure.
Ben Tozer's great. Key, he's going to be a key piece, and I think if I think his aim will be to play every single game once again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in fairness to Phil Parkinson, some managers aren't always in the dressing room, so I guess in that sense it makes sense to make you captain, responsible for the for the fines and everything. Wanted to just talking of Tozer and the long throw threat that he's got. I wanted to discuss with you the theme of set pieces, Nathan, and the role that's going to have in Wrexham's chances, because Tom O'Connor, I know, is an excellent set piece specialist from his time. He was excellent, by the way, in League One with Burton and Gillingham. So that's the kind of caliber of player that you've got right now. And obviously, it was brilliant for yourselves last season in the National League. But yeah, those set pieces from Tom O'Connor and the long throws from Ben Tozer, they're going to be massive for you next season, aren't they?
Yes, I mean set piece. I mean we've got a couple. Jordan Davis as well. He struggled with personal issues, fitness last season. Had really bad surgery, and so was out of it. But he's very good. I mean he's a brilliant free kick taker. Luke Young is immense on corners. Tom O'Connor's very good on corners and free kicks. Elliot Lee needs a bit more practice on his corners, trying to beat the first man, but he likes to take a set piece. I think when you have someone like Aaron Hayden in your team, gets 12 league goals last season.
Mm.
Injury ruined his season midway through in January. He would have got to 15 surely. Could have even been a bit more. He was getting braces in games from set pieces from centre back. With someone like that, who we feel was the best player in each box at both ends, best attacking defender and best sort of defensive defender in terms of set pieces,
Is he going to
you've
be
got a
back for the
huge
start of
asset
the
there.
season? Sorry, is he going to
Yeah,
be back
he's
for the
he's
start?
back now. He'll be back for the start of the season, and for him, it's trying to get back in the team, if anything, because he got injured. Phil Parkinson went and signed Owen O'Connell, and Owen O'Connell's
Oh,
dropped from Charlton, and so you've got Owen O'Connell, you've got Ben Tozer. Both of those, I mean, look like they're going to play a lot of matches.
mm,
Many people want Aaron Hayden to play, but then you've got Jordan Tunnicliffe, League Two Team of the Year, pardon me, with Crawley before he joined us. So again, a very competent defender. Four defenders there that would get into most teams, you would think,
mm.
and one of them is going to miss out every single week. Obviously, injuries will play a part, but Aaron Hayden, when he plays, will be a huge set piece threat, and I think there'll be few defenders in the league that will be as dangerous on corners as he is next
Mm.
season. And again, I think a double digit goal haul is not out of the question if he plays enough and he stays fit.
Right, let's hope that's the case. Yeah, no, I've always been a massive fan of Owen O'Connell, and to be honest, I've always felt like he's had the potential to play higher. I can remember him playing for Warsaw. Was it on loan from Celtic back in 2017? I think it was against Bristol Rovers, might have been his debut or something like that. And you could see then that like his ability stepping out and carrying the ball forward into midfield was really quite something. Then he
Mm.
was part of a Berry side. They played with the back three as well, actually. I think he was playing sort of wide of Nathan Thompson then, and they won promotion that year. And an excellent for Rochdale last year before last as well. That was in the middle of a back three, presumably with Ben Tozer in there. He'd be looking at one of the wide positions in the back three. But in terms of ability on the ball, he's certainly certainly right up there.
Superb. Yeah, yeah. You could see that straight away. I mean, there was a goal against Notts County where he sort of chipped it into the air and then ran on. Everyone else stopped looking up at this ball that had looped over, and then he just he was almost like a I don't know in rugby where you just could sort of kick it up and chase after it, and he chased
I'll have
after
to
it, and
watch that one.
he's suddenly on the right wing, and we were all watching it very confused. He whips it in, we score, and it's pandemonium. So, but he's very comfortable with the ball at his feet. He's probably the most comfortable of the defenders in terms of carrying the ball out.
Hmm.
Jordan Tunnicliffe is the most head it, clear it, will put his head where it hurts
Got a
type of
lot of
defender.
centre backs, mate, haven't you? I mean, you're saying you
Yeah, we've got
wanted
a lot.
another centre back, but that's a lot of good options there already, aren't there?
Yeah, I think the reason for another centre back is we've got Max Cleworth, who is one of the most highly rated players, young players at the football club. He just needs to get out and play. And so you sort of need Phil Parkinson will want five centre backs. And so to let him leave on loan, I think don't necessarily need to go and get another Owen O'Connell or Ben Tozer. I'm not suggesting that, but they'll want another defender in there because if there's two of your centre backs get injured and you need Tom O'Connor to because we needed at times Tom O'Connor to slot back in there. He can do that job effectively. I know you've seen it at other clubs where he's played in the back line, but
Super
he's
versatile. Yeah,
yeah, but he's much more effective as a midfielder.
yeah,
And we lose
yeah.
a lot when he's not in midfield. So It's more a case of, I think people want that centre back to allow Max to go and play on loan at maybe a National League club for a full season. He's only 20, and then he can come back and play, because as the rate Wrexham are trying to go up, it's I feel for Phil Parkinson, because it's not an environment where you're going to have time to bed in younger players. Really, you're in win now mode. Wrexham are in win now mode. There's a lot of pressure. There will
Yes,
be to get up,
yeah. Well,
so to
I
get a
totally
player
see your
out the
point.
academy, yeah. Mm,
Yeah, no, I see your point, but I also think that um, if you go far down the win now mode, I think it's really important that you still have players that are coming in and just almost come in with like no fear, no inhibitions, and just go straight in for it, sort of thing. Where
mm,
and just spark everything up. I still think there's always room for that sort of player, regardless of the trajectory you're on, regardless of the expectation. You
mm.
need some players who come in, almost from a different position and just kind of like liven everything up.
And look, they might stick with Max. They're very,
Mm,
very highly thought of. They may just stick with him as that fifth defender and say, look,
yeah.
you will get your chances in the cups, in some league games. We're very fortunate with injury, really, apart from Aaron Hayden, Tunnicliffe, O'Connell when he came in, Tozer, all did pretty well in staying fit. You never know, touch knock on wood, that you never know with these things. But Max may get plenty of opportunity to play. But I think when everyone's fit, it's more about his development. I think people just want to see him play to develop. And it just seems like the road to prosperity with Wrexham right now. We want him to be a centre back for us for years to come, but right now it's not a place that he's been able to get so many reps, so many minutes in to play.
Mm,
But
sure.
in terms of going back to the original point, in terms of Owen O'Connell, yeah, very very skilled on the ball and very so composed again. And Ben
Mm.
Tozer, trust him. You've got Owen O'Connell to the right, or Aaron Hayden. You've got a choice between Owen O'Connell or Aaron Hayden. I mean, it's not the worst decision in the world for Phil Parkinson
Yeah.
there.
O'Connell could probably
Yeah.
play on the left as well,
That's true.
maybe.
That's true. Yeah, he could play on the left, and so then, it's do you go with Jordan Tunnicliffe or Owen O'Connell on the left? It really there isn't a
Mm,
combination. I think that there isn't a combination that I think is bad. I think he can win with any combination. He's complete in the Rubik's cube, whichever way he turns it, really.
mm,
But I think Ben Tozer is the definite. He's the only one that would anchor that defense. I just can't see injury dependent. I can't see any other combination where Ben Tozer is not the anchor point in that defense.
absolutely. That certainly makes sense. Talk to me about Jacob Mendy, Nathan, and the role he had in last season's title win.
Yeah, great. I mean, I'm a big Jacob Mendy fan. Very quiet guy. Keeps himself to himself, but he's very. I mean, he's very talented. His journey to this point has been inspiring, to say the least. Worked at kind of a waste removal plant, and if you look into his backstory, it's great. Come up through all the hard wheeled stone and all these kind of Boreham Wood. He's worked his way up the pyramid. And he's finally getting his shot at the EFL. Can be quite frustrating for certain people, for sure. In
In what
terms of
way?
that, he can be an absolute world beater, and then he can, look like he has zero confidence to take on his man, and that's very frustrating in a position where you've got Ryan Barnett on the other side who has zero fear just to keep
Mm,
taking his man on, even if it doesn't work. Mendy very much a confidence player, but when he's on it, he's brilliant and will more than hold his own in League Two. The key for him will just be not losing that confidence. In a tough matchup, we saw him at Halifax last season where he really struggled and the fans were on his back, which was always difficult to see. And
mm,
then the next game was, do we change it? Do we Notts County at home? It's essentially a title decider. Do we play him? Do we change it? He didn't look right at Halifax a few days earlier. This was the Friday. We're playing on the bank holiday Monday. He played. He was arguably the man of the match. Scored. And I thought that showed a lot about his mentality there. You've seen him now,
mm,
got the international call up. I think something just clicked with him in that Notts County game of I can be amazing and I
mm,
need to be this level all the time if I want to get to League One and Championship. And genuinely, he is a player that we don't fully know the potential of. And I think
mm.
he is one where he could go up. We've seen with Luton. I'm forgetting his name now. Mwepu, is it? Who went all the way?
Oh,
Um, not
Mpanze.
Mwepu. And Pansy, there
Yeah,
you go.
I
Forgive
think
me.
Mwepu's the Brighton lad.
Hazard and Panzu, who went all the way. And, that's the dream. We'd love to see someone with Wrexham go all the way from the National League to the Premier League, just for the romance of it. Whether that is Mendy or whether that's someone else, I don't know. But right now, Mendy, the thing for Mendy is got to try and increase the number of assists. In a position where you're very much being judged on your attacking output. We've got three centre backs that can cover. Same for Barnett. You got to try and increase your output in terms of goals and assists, and I think that will be the key focus over the off season and next season. Will we get a bit more? Because you've got to think in the National League, teams are very reluctant to attack. So there's very little space in behind, largely. In League Two, there's going to be quite a few good teams that I think will have to attack and will believe that they can put pressure on Wrexham's defence, try and make Mendy defend, try and make Barnett defend, not their strong suits. So it'll be interesting. I'm really fascinated to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds from what you're saying there, Nathan, that one of the variables as to whether Wrexham can finish in the top three this season or not is whether Jacob Mendy plays with full confidence. Because if he can, then that's obviously going to be a massive strength. Obviously, one of the ways you get confidence, partly from playing well, obviously, which is a bit of a continuous cycle, but also from the management. Phil Parkinson's style of management, which I think has worked for him in many cases, is to be incredibly calm, incredibly, clear-minded, control the controllables. I think he's quite big on. But he's also a little bit distant at times, and you wouldn't necessarily consider him one of the most amazing coaches in terms of developing young players to new heights and putting an arm around their shoulder and making them feel loved and all that side of the management. So how have you found, in your experience as a Wrexham fan, Phil Parkinson, in terms of how he's been able to, have there been other people on the coaching staff that have provided different qualities to him? How has he sort of negotiated that side of the job?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly spot on assessment. I mean, you've seen Phil Parkinson in enough jobs. He is somewhat distant. Steve Parkin plays a massive role with the players. Is that kind of link between the management and the players very popular? At the end of the season, it was after the title celebrations. It was Steve Parkin after finding some of the players asleep on the physio table, all hungover, and him going in there ringing the bell and turning the bright lights on, and didn't go down super well, but is that kind of no nonsense joker that is the link between the players, demanding of the players, but will put arm around. And I think, in credit to Phil Parkinson, I think he picks his moments when he needs to kind of be the man manager, the arm around the shoulder type. Jordan Davis, for example, lost his child to stillbirth. Anthony Ford's had personal problems this year. There's been a couple of different very serious incidents where Parkinson has been very good in terms of time off, in terms of checking in on them and all that sort of thing. But generally, yeah, he's not a. I'm trying to think of someone who is very, very much arm around the shoulder type. Maybe you'll offer one up. I'm trying to think of one, but um, because I've been out the EFL for so long, I'm not super sure on all the
Yeah,
managers'
yeah,
sort
of
of
course.
tendencies.
My
But
mind
he's not.
blank.
He's not someone that's going to be trying to be one of the lads or anything like that.
Mm,
I think he's too experienced. He's too mature. Really, not that that's an immature trait, but he's very
mm,
much. There's a defined gap between management and he's very big on characters who he brings in around him. Aidan Davison is very popular as the goalkeeping coach. And even people like, he leaves the kind of camaraderie side of things to people like Ben Foster. He's 40.
mm.
He could be a coach now, couldn't he? He could be a goalkeeping coach. He's
Yeah,
very, an
and
extroverted
it's those sorts
personality.
of
Ollie
things.
Palmer's
Yeah,
right,
it's
and
those
it's like
sorts of things where
devolving the
those.
power.
Yeah,
And it's quite funny
no,
that
that's really.
Ben Tozer is, sorry to interrupt, Gabby. Someone that's told me that Ben Tozer is actually one of the jokers of the dressing room. I say about the DJ and all that, but he's one of the funniest guys in there. And it was funny that come the documentary, he actually didn't want to be filmed too much. He wasn't in season one, really, if people watched it. And it was quite curious because he's, one of the leaders of the team, plays every week. And yeah, he didn't want to come across as unserious, and but from all accounts behind the scenes, he keeps the mood very light, and And I think Phil's quite happy to let the players do that and let Steve be the link, and anything that's super serious and knock on the door, conversation with a manager. It's very, very professional, and there's that distance there between Parkinson. But you can't argue with his results. Ran Stockport
Yeah.
very close with half a season of his team really, and got made more signings, was backed, and did the job, and how far he can stick with Wrexham and how far he can be involved and with the process, because he's in one of the hottest of hot seats around, and that's not necessarily from a ownership point of view, but the media will be quick to tear him apart if Wrexham have a poor start, or
Mm.
for example, if Phil Parkinson and Wrexham have a start similar to Stockport, I'll be interested to see the reaction and whether there is that patience outside of the club, because there will be internally, but outside, I'd be interested to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of raises a really important point where I think every strength a manager has can be a weakness. Likewise, every weakness can be a strength. So really what separates, good managers from ones that aren't so successful is really the ability to delegate and understand where there's certain things that I might not be able to offer, but can I surround myself with people who can offer those things, whether that's in the coaching team, whether that's the players that I recruit, whether that's the culture that we've created between us. I think that's incredibly important. So well done to Phil Parkinson on that side of the job, really. You mentioned Elliot Lee there, that it's going to be very difficult for anyone to displace him in whether it's a number 10 role or as part of the 3-man midfield. So talk to us about the creativity that he's brought to Wrexham.
Oh, Gabby, I can't stop smiling. He's so good. He's a wizard. He's unbelievable. His finishing is incredible. His vision, just his general personality on that dressing room is just a breath of fresh air. He's always smiling. He is, he's the cool kid that everyone wants to sit with on the back of the bus. He's great. He's super popular, and fans absolutely love him. And I think there have been times where, especially when he joined early on, I think maybe we expected a little bit too much too soon. I think he dropped down from Luton and he's been at Charlton, and he's just going to rip the league apart and he's going to be so good. And I think on these muddy pitches and trying to get used to, because physicality, like you said, is a big thing. He was getting
Sure.
clattered by certain players, and it was right. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to be able to stand up, take the hits, and play on? And he did. He sucked it up, and suddenly he was able to flex his superior technique. And I just think he is someone who, as we go up the leagues, the facilities improve, the players improve. I mean, I saw him. Well, obviously I saw him. I was away at Coventry in the FA Cup. I mean, he was
Mm.
brilliant. Not only did he score the cross shot that he might say, I mean, even he admitted it was a cross, but it looked like an unbelievable shot that I'm still telling people was a shot, really. Um,
It was a
but he,
shot.
he just looked, up against better players. And we're talking, I know they didn't start, but Hamer. I'm trying to think of others in that Coventry midfield, but far better
Gyökeres.
players. Gyökeres, yeah, came on, but he just, I'm still there. He just looked at home around those better players, which I think spoke volumes. He had more space to operate. He wasn't being crunched every 2 seconds into muddy marshes, and was allowed to play, allowed to put his foot on the ball, and his vision is amazing. And his finishing, I think, has improved. It's difficult for me to say that based on one season, but over the course of the season, his finishing's definitely improved and scored a couple of goal of the season contenders for us without a shadow of a doubt. I think of Dorking, probably 25, 30 yards out. I think of Chesterfield, on the half turn. That was really, really good. One away at Eastleigh. So, yeah, of all the players, I'm probably most looking forward to seeing Ryan Barnett next season, just in terms of he's a bit of an unknown quantity still. But if
Mm.
second to him would be Elliot Lee, because I know what I'm going to get out of Paul Mullin. I sort of know what I'm going to get out of Elliot Lee, but he just does something every game which makes you go, how have we convinced this man to pack up his things and come to North Wales? And when you see, Alan Shearer and Rob Lee tweeting about Wrexham every 5 minutes, it's always good fun. He's great.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Ryan Barnett there. Why are you so excited to see him in League Two next year?
Because he's so fearless, Gabby. Because he hasn't had that. He doesn't have that EFL resume that we know Because really, what more can we expect out of Ben Tozer, Paul Mullin, Ollie Palmer, Tom O'Connor, Andy Cannon, Elliot Lee, Ben Foster, Aaron Hayden? They've all played there before. There's nothing for, in my opinion, there's nothing for them to prove in League Two
Mm.
that they haven't already proved in League Two or higher. Ryan Barnett, you just don't know. He could be the best fullback, best wing back in the division, or he could struggle. We don't know. I would be surprised if it's the latter, based on the team he's in. But if at the end of the season Ryan Barnett is in Team of the Year, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think it's that unknown that is the most
Why do you
exciting
think he
because
could
he gets you
struggle?
off your seat. Because he is in a position where he'll need to defend. And away
Mm.
at Maidenhead last season, I think he struggled. He looked a little bit out of his, because ultimately he was a winger at Solihull, and so his defensive
Sure.
duties were not paramount. Whereas playing in a 3-5-2, he's going to come. If we come up against a 4-3-3, they may target him as a defender, and it's can he stand up to the challenge? Is he gonna? He might have an Owen O'Connell next to him that they can go together. They can press on as a pair, but then there's always going to be a free man. He's going to have to man somebody up, one on one, and face them up. And I've got no doubt he can do that. He's got great mentors alongside him, Ben Tozer, Owen O'Connell in terms of defensive positioning. We've also got Anthony Ford who can play there if it's a game where it's a more defense-minded operation. Where I don't know, we'll be playing a Gillingham or an MK Dons and we're up against it. We need Ford to be a bit more assured. But Ryan Barnett should be striking fear into the opposition going forward, and he's that player that is just getting bums off seats. And for as good as Wrexham have got talent-wise, they're few and far between in terms of those that can really get you off your seat, and he's one of them. So that's probably why
Yeah,
I'm most
absolutely.
excited.
Yeah, for sure, and hopefully you can sort of take the game to opponents as well, and be attacking, which is, I suppose, an interesting one as well. I mean, it feeds a little bit into the conversation we had about style with Phil Parkinson, but not necessarily directly. Which is, how attacking do you expect Wrexham to be? Because Phil Parkinson, at times in the past, he's been a bit of an underdog to different extents, and he's been able to succeed as an underdog. But he's obviously had different challenges last year, because you've obviously got the weight of expectation. You've got to be the team that's kind of that's on the front foot. Yeah. So how has he been able to adjust stylistically to the new requirements?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I remember I spoke to Zavon Hines a while ago when I was just getting a bit of background on Phil Parkinson, and he was saying, keeps it tight, and it's Bradford and Colchester, and will look long, and I think with Wrexham he's just got better players than everyone else in the division he was in, so you have to go for it. You have to try and score goals. You've got so much firepower there, light the fuse, which he did, and I think he was painted as a little bit one-dimensional in terms of he suits this role. All his jobs have been underdog jobs. Actually, he's incredibly savvy and has got great people around him and has built a team that can blow the doors off the house. And the interesting thing for me now will be, how does that translate to League Two? Because where do Wrexham rank in terms of the weight of expectation? Will the general EFL League Two fan expect Wrexham to win the division? Top three, top seven, top 10. I mean, I would imagine that there will be sizable expectation on Wrexham to get promoted. I think if Wrexham come in, finish 12th, I don't think there'll be people saying, what a solid bedding in season. Good luck
Yeah.
till next year. Plucky Wrexham underdogs. I think there'll be a lot of people saying this is a massive failure and, park you out kind of thing.
Mm.
So I think there will be onus on him to attack, and Wrexham should have a squad better than a lot of the division. If I've just gone through the team there, there'll be teams that will feel comparable to Wrexham. Players like Andy Cook will believe he can go and win the Golden Boot again ahead of Paul Mullin. Notts County have gone and got David McGoldrick. I mean, they're not messing around in terms of their recruitment. Obviously, lost Ruben
What a great
Rodriguez.
signing that is.
Gillingham. I mean, you'll know better than me, but they are serious about the money they're trying to spend this summer, their investment.
Mm.
MK Dons will give it a go. They look like they're making some good signings. Mansfield are going to be up there again. Nigel Clough's a very good manager. I'm sure Salford will want to be in and around it again. And there'll be there's
Bradford, I
always
don't
one or
think.
two surprises. Bradford, yeah. Sorry, Bradford as well. Yeah, Bradford will definitely be up there. And there's always that one or two surprises as well, Gab, isn't there? That
Of
I'm
course.
not sure how many people. I'm not sure how many people had Carlisle going up. Maybe if I'm speaking out of turn, there, then do correct me. But there's always one or two that Sutton a few years ago. I don't think many expected Sutton to be up there. So it's always going to be
Barrow
one of them.
last
But
season.
Wrexham, Barrow, yeah. So look, it'll come down to coaching. It'll come down to options. More space on the bench in League Two, which I think is one of the main things people are looking forward to, because a 5-man bench with one goalkeeper left us very shy on game-changing options. So that we're looking forward to. And Gab, we've been out of it so long. Do we get 5 substitutes in League Two or not?
I think it's 7 in League Two. I'm not certain about that, but I think
No,
it's
as in,
7.
can we make 5 substitutes or
Oh,
not? Or is it still 3?
oh,
I'm putting
I'm
you
not.
on the spot here. I
You've
don't
put me
know,
on the spot.
but we've been
I
out.
think it might only
We've
be
been out of the
3, but
league.
I'm not. I
Oh,
think it's
okay,
3.
okay. Well, good. If Wrexham had the chance to make 5, I'll say if in case. Squad depth should be a massive factor. So um, it's it's a bit where it feels a bit odd still being an optimistic Wrexham fan. Those words sort of seem an antithesis of each other. But it's got to get used to it a bit more. We're looking forward to a positive season, Gab. To be totally honest, I mean, I'm going to give my predictions on the podcast soon of a 1 through 24. Sure, you'll do yours very soon as well, 1 through 24. I'm going to say as a spoiler alert that the Wrexham are going to be very high on my, um, and that's not just a bias. That is, look at the players and look at the quality and look at where these players probably should be playing right now, and it isn't, coming out of the National League. So as it stands right now, with the squad we've got today, with no more additions, I've got Wrexham doing very, very well. Famous last words,
Let's
anyway.
Yeah, let's hope that's the case. I wanted to. What would be sort of flipping that on its head? Are there any reasons why you'd be a little bit more? Because I feel like sort of talking to you, I've got lots of reasons why I should go very high on Wrexham. Are there any reasons to be a little bit cautious about Wrexham next season?
I mean, injury to Paul Mullin would be a disaster, even with all the depth. I think he's irreplaceable, and you could say that about any player at any team. You can't really deal in hypotheticals, but if Ollie Palmer was to go out, you've got Sam Dolby. I think can play that role effectively. Billy Wars, I haven't seen enough of, but I just don't think anyone can offer you the talent and the output right now that Paul Mullin could offer you. And you're not
Mm,
going to be able to keep a Paul Mullin in reserve. I fully get that. Um, the main thing that could derail Wrexham is injuries. I mean, we saw Aaron Hayden go out, Tom O'Connor go out for large spells, Jordan Davis. Well, we weren't
sure.
bound by a transfer window, so we could go and get Owen O'Connell. We could go and get Andy Cannon. Going to be different this time because you're going to have your squad. You're going to be bound by transfer windows. It's not going to be a roll up, go and get another player from the championship type of thing,
Mm,
which is always a very nice stall to be buying from. So it's in terms of the actual players. I mean, they're in form. They've got momentum. Really, what could knock Wrexham off their perch? I mean, you have to say it's injury, really.
mm,
Tactically, they're very set on what they're going to do. They're going to play 3-5-2. They're going to play very similar. Utilize the wing backs, play through Elliot Lee, try and get a firm base in midfield with Tom O'Connor. You've got Ben Tozer behind him in central defence. It's going to be very, in a way, predictable, but it's difficult to stop nonetheless. Managers will know what they're going to get from Wrexham. It's just, do they have the players capable of stopping Mullin, Lee, Barnett, Mendy? The answer on most weeks will probably be no. Well, we'll see. We'll soon find out. The fixtures are out very soon. We'll soon find out. But I'm going to say, particularly at the race course, and again, the interesting thing will be that there's almost no way that Wrexham can replicate their home form where they didn't lose all season. They went unbeaten
mm,
at home all season. That was unheard of, really. They dropped, what is it, 2 points? They drew one game at home and won all the rest. So
ah,
um, I think what Wrexham mustn't do is panic if they lose a home game early on. I know they won't, but the fan base as well. What we did last season was unprecedented. Incredible numbers that probably will never be matched. Um, but League Two, I think there's a little bit more leeway with 3 automatic and then the 4 playoffs. I think you've got a little bit more leeway to lose a couple of games and draw a couple of games. Whereas I think last season it felt like with not scouting so close, we had to win every single week, right? It was if you drew a game, you felt like you wanted to lie in a dark room and just wait for it all to blow over and then drop 2 points. You've drawn to third place Chesterfield and you think that's the biggest sin in the world.
Just
Whereas
exhausting.
now,
Yeah.
yeah, you're just exhausted because you just think we've blown it, every single week. Thankfully, we won many games, but it's so for me, it's Mullin. Can you keep? I mean, he stayed fit for most of the season. There's been some talk about him needing a cleanup on his knee. We don't know if he's had that yet, or if he really needed it come the end of the season. But there was a lot of talk he did need that. So keeping him fit is got to be of paramount importance, and whether that's letting him have a day off from training where he needs it or whatever, but he needs to play the bulk of the matches, league matches, for us to score the amount of goals we believe we can.
Yeah, well, let's hope that's the case. Really exciting journey for Wrexham, certainly, and can't wait to see you in the Football League next season. Nathan, such a pleasure to chat to you about the Red Dragons. So thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. What are your plans for Rob Ryan Red next season then?
Oh, hopefully, even more even more listeners. That'd be good if people listen about. I mean, the documentary is going to come out. There'll be a spike up, I'm sure, of new fans that discover Wrexham through season 2 of the documentary. And yeah, we're just a podcast, two friends from university, lifelong Wrexham fans who just talk through the obscene weeks of Wrexham. And a week in the life of Wrexham is never dull now, as you can imagine, Gab. And I don't know. Look, I'm very wary of saying about quickly on the just Wrexham and the EFL. I'm very wary about Wrexham increasing the exposure of the EFL because there's some storied clubs in the EFL, great storylines, great players, great managers. But in the States, I mean, Wrexham will put the EFL, and I think it's an opportunity for the EFL and for other clubs to, because what I saw with some American fans that discovered the podcast and then by them discovering the matches, and they suddenly got a soft spot for Dorking Wanderers or for Southend, or it resonated with them, these community clubs. And you'll know countless examples of teams that are hard done by or are playing with with against teams with budgets far superior to them, and it might
Yeah,
be that, I don't know, a pocket of fans in Idaho suddenly take Accrington Stanley to the Hearts. You never know with these
yeah,
things.
yeah.
It's an
And
obscene
well,
it's an obscene phrase, but you never know with these things. And I think the opportunity. I think Wrexham will put a huge spotlight on the EFL next season. I know that will rub some people up the wrong way because it'll be all about Wrexham and this and that. But what Ryan and Rob did for the National League, the National League should be eternally grateful for, because they put the National League on the map, global map, and
yeah.
they can do that for League Two next season for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one thing that I'm really excited about. Listen, you in life, you're not meant to be for everyone. Like, otherwise, what would be the point, sort of thing. So there are some people who aren't going to be mad on it, but from my point of view, and one of the reasons why I do what I do is to promote lower league football, and I want as many people as possible to experience the magic of lower league football, the magic of the unpredictability, the promotions and relegations, and the heartache, the drama, the euphoria that comes with it. I want people to come with us on that journey, and I think that if Rob and Ryan can get involved with that and put it on a broader map, then personally I'm delighted about that.
Yeah, I mean that's the aim, and let's hope Wrexham are EFL League One next time I speak to you, Gab, for this end of season or start of season preview.
Yeah, well, let's hope so, Nathan. Well, a lot of work to be done between now and then. So let's see. Nathan, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for making your EFL debate debut. This has been EFL debate. If you haven't already and you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. If you're watching this on Twitter, give me a follow. If you're watching this on Spotify, do whatever you do with podcasts. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, this has been EFL debate, the Wrexham summer deep dive. And we'll see you again very soon.